For very obvious reasons, we're hearing a lot about the debacle. We had the people at the highest level of the government planning a war over a chat. There's been a lot of focus on the fact that a journalist was there accidentally, inadvertently. But I want to talk about something else. These people, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Director of CIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These people, these high-level people, highest level people in the United States government, are guilty of mishandling national defense information. They're also guilty of attempting to destroy classified, highly classified information. These things are illegal. They are guilty, at the very least, of violating the Espionage Act, among other things, which should be a big deal. So, their focus has been on how did the journalist get there? Well, you invited him. But also, from the other side, on the egregiously reckless behavior of these people who have enormous amount of power and responsibility, neither of which they deserve. This is basically the Republican Fascist Party circling the wagon around these horrific acts, these illegal acts that damage our ability to defend ourselves as a country. So I want to shift that focus. What happens if nothing happens? By rights, these people should be tried and convicted. We have the evidence right in front of our eyes because thankfully there was a journalist in that chat, accidentally, inadvertently. But what if, for example, Donald Trump, the ostensible commander-in-chief of the United States military, doesn't care? What does that mean about where we are? Because that's how dangerous this is. It's not that a bunch of people at the highest levels of government went rogue. No. They did this at Donald Trump's bidding, with his permission, and if they get away with it, it's because he wants them to. And fuck everybody else. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It's great to be here. Thank you for being here with me. Okay, so back to that debacle. When a journalist actually accidentally ends up in a group chat with Donald's top war planners, you would expect heads to roll, as I mentioned, right? That would be the normal thing to happen. And today's Senate committee hearing was a masterclass in evasion, which, considering who they work for, shouldn't surprise us at all. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, also known as Putin's girlfriend in Russia media circles, couldn't even admit she was in the chat, even though her initials, TG, clearly demonstrated that she was. I mean, who else could it be? Tegan Goddard, I don't mean to drag him into this, but it seems unlikely unless they invited another journalist in accidentally. Goddard is the founder of the Political Wire. Pretty sure it wasn't him. Who else? I literally couldn't think of any other names that are TG. The best defense that Donald's minions could muster was that the leaked war plans just weren't, quote, classified by their standards, unquote. Here's CIA Director John Ratcliffe trying to blame who? Joe Biden. Take a look.
One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Director Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, the Signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is
I've got a series of
end-to-end encryption. So to
is,
finish,
I understand
it is
encryption.
permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So,
no. So I have a question. Did he have Donald in his ear? Because it was just perfect imitation. Wasn't me. It was the other guy. I'm not in charge. Buck doesn't stop here. I had no idea. Bullshit. Senators Angus King and John Ossoff challenged Gabbard and Ratcliffe on the security risk of discussing military timing of a bombing in an open chat. Bennett grilled them over the presence of one of Donald's advisors who was in Moscow, as in Russia, during the chat. Republicans downplayed the breach, with the execrable Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, calling the Yemen operation a quote-unquote success and saying the leak was acknowledged and corrected. Check out what this hideous human being had to say.
Well, look, the White House came out with a statement, I think within the last hour. Somebody handed me what they said. They clarified there were no war plans discussed. There was no classified material sent on that thread. The White House counsel is looking into the matter, looking into how this other number was inadvertently added. Obviously, that was a mistake and a serious one. But I just want to say, I mean, thanks to President Trump and his strong leadership and all the everybody on that group chat, the leaders on that group chat are extraordinary people. I know them all personally. They're patriots. They're doing a great job for the country. And that was a successful mission. I mean, we're taking out Houthi terrorists. That's what the American people expect the administration to do, to restore peace through strength and to act decisively. So, look, they've acknowledged that there was an error, and they're correcting it. And I would have asked the same thing of the Biden administration. I don't think anyone should have lost their job over that because an errant number, found its way onto a dialogue between leaders. It's a mistake, but we got to correct it going forward, and they will.
An errant number. Okay, so this guy, I don't know how he stands because he doesn't have a spine, obviously. But his dismissiveness, his pretense that this would have been just fine if something like this had happened under the Biden administration. They wanted Hillary Clinton jailed for using a stupid email server, for God's sakes. No, they know exactly what happened. They're all lying. And I'm really sorry, Mike Johnson, but just because you're vouching for somebody doesn't actually make me trust that they're decent human beings or patriots, because they're clearly not, because neither are you. And I'm also quite sorry to say, I don't trust a word that comes out of this White House or anybody else involved in this regime. The incident comes amid broader concerns that said regime is weakening the United States national security through staff cuts, questionable alliances, like with Russia, for example, and chaotic policy moves. Atlantic editor-in-chief, I should say, Jeffrey Goldberg, said he may release more details from a Signal group chat he was mistakenly added to, which allegedly included top-secret war plans from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Here's Goldberg in the wake of the report released late yesterday.
The unreality of it, I think, is something that's very hard to capture. I have a hard time explaining the unreality of it because, as you note, you've been on one side of that divide, I've been on the other. The national security world is a pretty serious world, and especially at the level below the principals, there are people who take their responsibilities extremely seriously and take security and safety and cybersecurity and digital security very, very seriously. And there are people, we both know of people who've gone to prison for mishandling sensitive information. And so, one of my problems, and I've been, asked this question a few times today, it's why did you have such a hard time believing this? And the answer is because it's unbelievable. I mean, I've never experienced this.
Yeah, well, we need to change our paradigm with these people. Obviously, it's totally believable because they're hacks, they're incompetent, and they don't care. The White House and Hegseth have denied that the war plans were shared in the chat, with Hegseth attacking Goldberg's credibility Which seems like an interesting move considering Goldberg wasn't even intentionally there himself. Like, he didn't ask to be there. He didn't put himself in the chat. You can't do that in Signal. You need to be invited. Goldberg said he's considering publicly vetting the messages, but isn't ready to confirm that yet. But quickly, kudos to him for not waiting 2 flippin' years before letting us know what actually happened. While the Senate is mopping the floor with Donald's intelligence chiefs, I should say the Democrats in the Senate, the House decided to pile on as well in a slightly less formal way. This clip shows Jamie Raskin and Representative Jaron Moskowitz finding a new use for the infamous emoji text from the War League. Take a look.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's always good, like when we have something that's bipartisan, to point it out because it happens so little around here anymore. But rather than giving like a really big, long speech, I feel like I could just use this, and this will tell you that I think it's good, right? So like that's a fist, American flag, fire. So I'll just, from now on, when we do things where like we agree, I'll just hold this up rather than giving like a really big, long speech. So job well done, guys.
Would the gentleman yield?
Sure, I'll yield.
But I'm not sure everybody recognizes the reference there. Would you explain where that comes from?
Yeah, so this is how when we're in like a chat with friends, right, where we're like having a casual chat about like where we're dropping missiles.
Are you talking about a public chat room?
Yeah, but like, and with friends, and we're just like, you know, hamming about who we're gonna bomb and all of that. But we agree, we fist American flag fire. So I'm holding this up. I think we could just keep the committee shorter if like when we agree, we just hold this up.
Yeah, that would be a great idea because it would be succinct and a shortcut. Luckily, it doesn't happen often. It won't happen often because the Democrats and Republicans never agree. I'm not entirely sure they agree right now. And that's funny. If we're not laughing, we're crying, right? Things are terrible. However, this is, and I'm happy that Jamie Raskin and Moskowitz did this because I think it on one level, it represents the absurdity of the times in which we live. That these guys were on a chat that is not secure, that is not sanctioned by the government they work for, talking about the most serious national security matters, bombing another country. I don't care who your target is. That is insane. Because what if somebody in that other country had picked up this information? What do you think might have happened? Actually, just play that one out. I'm not going to. Play it out. What if it were another country that was actually in a position to preempt our strike against them? Play that out. This is the recklessness I'm talking about. This is the contempt these people have for us, our country, our safety, our children's safety and security, our futures. They don't fucking care. While national security experts and members of Congress are still sounding the alarm over the recklessness of this war planning leak, Donald what is he doing? Nobody ever knows what the fuck he's doing. Yeah, he's at the White House and he's pretending that none of it matters, which is a hint as to what will happen eventually, which is nothing. Donald held an ambassador meeting today at the White House, after which he took some questions. He attempted to explain to the press that even though there's no perfect communication technology, Signal is the best and most appropriate, even though he doesn't really know what it is.
You can even prepare for it. It can happen. Sometimes people are hooked in and you don't know they're hooked in. They're hooked into your line and they don't even mean bad by it. But it's not a perfect technology. There is no perfect technology. The really good ones are very cumbersome, very hard to access. And I think we always want to use the best technology. This was the best technology for the moment. But again, it wasn't classified, so they probably viewed it as being something that wasn't that important. And it obviously, with the attack being, I don't know if it's been read out to you yet, but that attack was a tremendous success for the U.S., a tremendous success.
Okay, this idiot doesn't even know how to turn on and off a laptop. He thinks it's some kind of magic from the 13th century or something. I mean, Jesus Christ, we're the United States of America. Do you know how much technology they have at their disposal? Do you know that Technology isn't even the issue here. Matters like this are discussed in things called SCIFs. Those are sensitive, compartmented information facilities. In those SCIFs, the most sensitive, classified planning takes place. Not on some messaging app, no matter how secure you might think it is. You go into a SCIF, you don't have a watch, you don't have a phone, you don't have a pen, you don't have a piece of paper, and you can't bring anything out either. That's how it's done. Not with somebody in flippin' Moscow texting on their private phones on an app you and I can have access to. With zero self-awareness because he's Donald. He doubled down, declaring his first 2 months in office perfect. As if mass deportation, a $500 billion tax shortfall because of the brilliant efficiency of the Department of Government Efficiency, and now an espionage scandal are all part of the plan, of course.
Well, I mean, look, we look at everything, and they've made a big deal out of this because we've had 2 perfect months. We are bringing in business. We have another one announced tomorrow, a big one, very big. Like in the history of our country, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I think probably a lot of people are saying they started by saying it was the greatest first month that a president has ever had, and I think that's true. And now they say it's the best second month, and they had to find something. And this certainly will look at this, but the main thing was nothing happened. The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not classified information because I say it's not. The emptiness of this person, the darkness inside of him, seriously, had the greatest first month in the history of all first months. And then the second best month ever. It was perfect. I'm perfect. Everything I do is perfect. You soulless creep. He can't, and also it's the greatest thing anybody has ever seen ever. Who is still listening to this delusional maniac? The only consolation, and it is a very tiny one, is that he is so miserable. He is so miserable every moment of his life. He constantly needs to be propped up. And clearly, not enough people are doing it sufficiently because he is left to prop himself up. I'm telling you, this is now his full-time job, making sure that no light enters into the darkness where his fragile, brutalized ego hides, cowering from the truth about what a horrible, horrible, tiny person he is. So yes, while he's left to pat himself on the back for his perfect start, the actual numbers paint a very different picture because of course they do. Behind the scenes, his administration's so-called efficiency overhaul is torching the very infrastructure that keeps this country running. The IRS, the Internal Revenue System, which is now controlled by the Trump regime, estimates that Elon Musk's DOGE has caused disruptions so severe that the United States is projected to lose over $500 billion in tax revenue by April 15, 2025. This is a staggering amount of money. Forget for a moment that that's about how much money Elon Musk has, because that's just an obscenity. For a government, even one as huge as ours, this is staggering. Nearly half of all non-defense discretionary spending is what that $500 million is a massive share of. But that loss stems from chaos at the IRS since Donald's inauguration, including filing delays and administrative breakdowns. And I would also speculate the fact that Donald doesn't want the IRS doing its job when it comes to his very rich friends and their corporations. While the number is a projection, it's only March. It's like we're not even at April 15th yet. It's a clear sign that DOGE's meddling has crippled core government functions and sparked a fiscal disaster in just 2 months. At the same time that DOGE's dysfunction is draining the nation's financing, the Trump regime is moving to weaponize what's left of the IRS, shifting its focus from revenue collection to, what would it be? What do you think it could possibly be? mean, you can't really collect taxes from poor people, can you? No. So immigration enforcement, because that makes perfect sense. Donald's regime is near a controversial agreement that would allow ICE to access IRS data to track and deport undocumented immigrants, including those who followed U.S. tax laws. The plan would break precedent by letting ICE submit names and removal orders for IRS cross-verification, despite strict federal laws protecting taxpayer privacy. Critics, including Senators Padilla, Wyden, and Cortez Masto, warned this move could violate privacy laws, undermine trust in the tax system, and cripple immigrant tax contributions, which totaled $96.7 billion in 2022. That's right, Donald Trump, you fucking criminal. Immigrants pay taxes, unlike you. They commit fewer crimes than average Americans, unlike you, who commits more than anybody else. The only difference is, of course, you get away with all of it. And you're making them pay for having done nothing except be better citizens than you have ever been in your miserable, useless life. And can we please stop with the qualifications here? The Democratic senators warned that this move could will violate privacy laws. That's the whole point. It will undermine trust in the tax system. That is the whole point. It will cripple immigrant tax contributions. That way, then, the racists among us, the immigrant-hating people among us, will then blame immigrants for not contributing their fair share. So while ICE prepares to mine tax data for deportations, DOGE is quietly dismantling one of the most critical safety nets in American life, which has been around for decades and that people depend on it. They don't just, it's not a luxury. It's not like, oh, this will make my life a little easier. No, they depend on it. Social Security, one of the reasons Social Security was started, so we didn't have older people who were incapable of working anymore, dying from starvation and not having shelter. Retirees, disabled Americans, immigrants are all going to be left stranded in a bureaucratic freefall if things continue as they are going, on purpose. And while Social Security collapses under DOGE's chaos, Donald's handpicked nominee, Wall Street executive Frank Bisognano, is pledging to run, although that's probably not how he pronounces it because he's American and not Italian, so I apologize, is pledging to, quote, run the agency in the right fashion, unquote. Even his questions surround his ties to DOGE, his refusal to rule out privatization, and his plan to use AI, of all things, to slash services in the name of rooting out fraud.
The Social Security Administration website crashed 4 times in 10 days this month, blocking millions of retirees and disabled Americans from logging into their online accounts because the servers were overloaded. That comes as 2 sources tell Axios the administration is rushing to cut phone services at the White House's request. Which brings us to Frank Bisognano, facing questions from lawmakers today in his bid to become Social Security's permanent administrator. It's had 4 administrators in the past 5 months to serve 73 million retired workers. But his approach appears to contradict what's been happening.
When you have a system that is not working now, do you think it's a great idea to lay off half of the employees?
I don't know if, do I think it's a great idea to lay off half of the employees when a system doesn't work? I think the answer is probably no.
Have you been consulted by the acting commissioner about DOGE's work at the Social Security Administration?
I have not had a conversation about anything with this Social Security commissioner.
Wow, it's hard to tell if he's lying because he seems to be barely awake, but he's lying. Of course he did. The Washington Post reported today that Social Security is in crisis amid massive staff cuts and system failures led by DOGE, with 12% of its staff eliminated and essential services like phone lines and website access breaking down. Take a look at this. The agency call centers are overwhelmed, with retirees waiting hours on hold or unable to get through it all, while office staff face burnout, low morale, and no training on new chaotic policy changes that likely don't make any sense. Staff attrition is skyrocketing, modernization projects are stalling, and a DOGE-imposed spending freeze have left offices without paper, pens, or functioning headsets, further crippling operations. To which I say, to all of that I say, yeah, exactly. That was the intention all along. If you just were paying attention and read the fascist manifesto, Project 2025, all of these people were involved in that in one way or the other. We knew that that was the Republican platform. That is the platform of the fascist party that has taken over this country. Of course, all of that is happening. That's the point. So while Donald's team is continuing to destroy our government, some officials, and I have to admit this surprised me, are getting out. Louis DeJoy, who has been a thorn in our side ever since, for reasons I continue still not to understand, was put in place as Postmaster General. He resigned yesterday amid growing pressure from the Trump regime, which is pushing to privatize the United States Postal Service, one of the greatest institutions in this country. You can put a stamp that costs the same amount wherever you are in this country and send a letter anywhere within the 50 United States of America. It is the most extraordinary thing. It is how older people and people in rural districts get their medication. It is, relatively speaking, inexpensive, and it is efficient. I can send a letter in New York, and it could be in California in 2 days with a stamp. The complaints among Republicans have always been, oh, it doesn't make any money. It's not supposed to. Can you show me how much the Department of Defense makes, despite our throwing almost $1 trillion a year at it? Nothing. It costs us $1 trillion a year. So I don't want to hear it. DeJoy's departure follows years of controversial changes, which is why I'm shocked, actually, that he was asked to step down. He wanted steep postage hikes, slower service, and massive workforce cuts, with over 30,000 jobs eliminated since 2021, and he had another 10,000 on the chopping block. Was that not enough for DOGE? He also recently signed an agreement allowing DOGE to help manage the USPS retirement and workers' comp programs, which of course fueled concerns of creeping privatization. Donald has floated a merger, placing the United States Postal Service under Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who is a moron. And this is a move union leaders warn would degrade service and inflate costs for the public. The American Postal Workers Union condemned the push as part of an ongoing coup by oligarchs against essential public services, because it is. The purpose of all of this is to enrich a very, very small group of white men, so they can just sell America for parts and divide among themselves whatever scraps are left over. I want to remind you of something, because this is increasingly important, especially in this atmosphere. Wisconsin is holding an election on April 1st. It's a Supreme Court race, which is a critical early test for Democrats post-2024. They are fighting to maintain the narrow 4-3 majority they have on the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. But in order to get there, in order to maintain that majority, and I don't know if you remember how vitally important the last election was, they have to counter the influence of Donald and Elon Musk on state politics. Take a look.
Two names circling in rotation throughout Wisconsin, vying for one seat on the state Supreme Court ahead of the April 1st election.
It's about all of our futures.
Now at a 4-3 liberal majority, the race's outcome will determine if it stays that way or swaps conservative. Democratic Dane County Judge Susan Crawford and Republican Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel had their feet on the gas pedal this weekend. hosting rallies, pop-ups, and public interviews. Crawford, who's gotten the nod and big donations from Democratic billionaires George Soros and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, stopped in Racine Sunday. She spoke on remaining partisan, her opponent's recent endorsements, and she denied claims about her making promises on the state's congressional maps.
I would make any decisions about that issue or any other issue based on what the law requires.
Now, veteran organizers like Angela Lang are refocusing on turnout in Milwaukee's Black communities, where Donald made gains in 2024. Despite digital criticism, Lang defends traditional canvassing while expanding outreach efforts, which I actually concur with. I mean, but also I think we should be doing everything. We should be pulling out all of the stops. And here's the problem. Elon Musk has poured nearly $7 million, which for him is pocket change, into an effort to bolster the Republican candidate Schimmel, replicating the digital-heavy GOP strategy from 2024, which is to say, buying the election. Democrats are trying to make Musk a central issue, warning against billionaires picking state judges, which is a good issue, except when you have billionaires picking state judges. So we have to be very careful here. What we have to be clear about is that Elon Musk should have no role to play here. He is an interloper. He's illegitimate. He was not elected. He was not confirmed. He has no business being involved in any United States elections at all. And we need to highlight just what a destructive force he has been in so short a time. Progressive digital creators like Josh Clemens and Kate Duffy are using TikTok to mobilize voters, which is good. And they're highlighting issues like abortion rights, economic struggles, and the court's influence on daily life. Although I also really hope that they focus on the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court and the reason we're all really here, which is that they protected Donald Trump, who is now completely above the law and destroying our country, and likely all of the states in it. Turnout messaging remain key concerns, especially among Black voters and women. Organized warn that without sharper, more authentic economic messaging, Democrats risk losing momentum again, though many believe the real test will come in the 2026 midterms. Yeah, okay, fine, but we can't wait. We have this in front of us right now. We have two very, very important gubernatorial elections in 2025 as well, and we need to be focusing on them, New Jersey and Virginia, right? So why wait? Let's start organizing now, because we're going to need all of that infrastructure in 2026. And I think part of the problem is, I sit here, I'm like, who could possibly continue to vote for this insanity? Well, we've learned that lesson. The truth of the matter is tens of millions of us can. So yes, we need to do everything we possibly can. And every election, and I think Democrats have made this mistake, so hopefully they're going to rectify it. We have to treat every single election like it's the most important one, because I promise you, in this environment, every single election is the most important one. Also, winning the gubernatorial races in those two states I mentioned will help momentum. It will help morale, which for Democrats is in the Marianas Trench right now. Educator unions are suing the Trump regime for revoking $400 million in federal research funding from Columbia University, accusing the White House of using the funding to punish dissent and suppress academic freedom, which is exactly what happened. And, Columbia capitulated. So the lawsuit was filed today in federal court by the American Association of University Professors and the American Federation of Teachers. And the lawsuit argues that the move is a political attack on campus free speech, especially surrounding pro-Palestinian protests, and has already crippled key research from Alzheimer's to cancer. This comes after a federal judge on Monday issued a restraining order ruling that the United States Agency for Global Media, now overseen by Lake, acted unlawfully in its abrupt effort to defund, that's Carrie Lake, who ran for Senate and governor of Arizona and thankfully lost both times because she's insane. It acted unlawfully in its effort to defund the broadcaster. This has temporarily halted the Trump regime, from defunding Radio Free Europe / Radio Liberty, ruling the move likely violated federal law, which seems to be the only thing these people are capable of doing. Judge Royce Lamberth, a Reagan appointee, because we need to know who appointed whom at this point, because that's where we are, said the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which Lake oversees, offered, quote, virtually no explanation, unquote, for trying to shut RFE and RL down despite decades of congressional support, bipartisan congressional support. Quote, the leadership of USGM cannot, with one sentence of reasoning, force RFE/RL to shut down, even if the president has told them to do so, unquote, because heretofore, presidents of the United States were not unbound. They had to adhere to precedent. They had to follow rules. They had to be answerable to their actions by the two other co-equal branches of government. But that isn't where we are anymore. Where we are is needing an emotional support moment is where we are. There will be no animals and there will be no piano because I've learned my lesson and I need a break from that. So we have something else. I think it's amazing. I hope you do too. I see things like that and it makes me happy. And it also makes me proud to be human, which is not something I'm feeling a lot of recently. Just I look at that and I think we did that. People with aspirations and dreams and hopes for our future and who care about things like, I don't know, science, did that for us so we could learn more and be more open-minded about things and just revel in the extraordinary beauty that surrounds us every day. That these horrible people who are trying to tear all of that down are doing everything in their power to keep us from. So let's not let them do that, shall we? All right. Okay, let's get to it. Starting with, hey, Suki56, great to have you here. And thank you, Mike. Thank you for your incredible generosity. Incredible and consistent. It's really awesome. Comment, hey, Mary, hey, team. The intelligence group should have just posted all their plans on the first page of every newspaper in the world, stating, oops, we said this out loud. Just saying, yeah, you're right. Why not? I mean, that would avoid having to lie about it. Yeah, we did it. Whatever. Who cares? Donald doesn't care. And if he doesn't care, why should we? And why should you? Davek38, thank you very much for that. Comment, 200,000 plus Israelis are protesting against not Netanyahu. And yeah, last I checked, Israel has a much smaller population than we do. It's kind of, if we had our, an equivalent number of Americans doing that, I think that would be quite something. But we're not there yet. I think one thing we have to remember is that the Democratic Party is kind of leaderless at the moment. And secondly, even though it doesn't seem like it's only been 65 days and people are grappling with a lot of things simultaneously. I refer to the times in which we live as the horrors, and new horrors unfold on a daily basis. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're seeing inflation go up, you're seeing prices go up. A lot of people are feeling like they've been lied to and cheated and all of that. Social Security is on the line, disability rights are on the line, everything's on the line. So, and it's impacting everybody differently at different times and in different ways. So I think that might be part of what's going on. But yeah, at some point we are going to have to get our acts together. Mimi of 8, thank you very much for that comment. Thank you, Mary. I couldn't do this without your videos. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Well, as I say, we feel honored to be able to do this, seriously. And it's wonderful to have you guys here. So thanks. Kathy, thank you so very much, Kathy. That's fantastic. Comment. This has caused me to face one of the hardest truths I've ever had in my 62 years, that there are so many heartless and soulless people walking among us. I could never fathom this. My heart is literally broken. Yeah, listen, I have been feeling some version of that since November 9th, 2016. So I empathize completely. However, I know it doesn't seem like it. I understand that it does not seem like it, but there really are more of us than there are of them. And, the more we engage with like-minded people in communities like this one, I think the better able we are to withstand what we're dealing with. I'm not pretending that it's easy, but that will make it easier. Like, it's so important. And I'm not throwing stones. I've had a tremendous difficulty with this as well over the years. And sometimes I have found it impossible, quite honestly. But we do have to hang on to all the good stuff. We really, really, really do. Now more than ever as things get worse. So we're here. We're glad you're here. So let's just keep this going. Thank you. Suki, again. Sorry, I should use your full name. Suki56. Thank you so much. Comment. Donald is the commander that sleeps, just saying. Well, actually, he's the commander who doesn't sleep. And I hate calling him that word, commander. He doesn't sleep. And I think that's part of the problem. He has a very serious sleep disorder. I don't know. It could be because he's seriously addicted to caffeine. Oh God, I just thought of a diabolical plan. All right, don't tell anybody. But this is it. I'm going to talk to Marco Rubio because he's in charge of the Diet Coke button. And I actually think he's miserable. Well, he's, part-time Secretary of State, so he's got a lot of time on his hands. And that button, that's going off like every day, all day long. Because Donald, I think, drinks about 12 Diet Cokes a day. So I think Rubio's the guy because, one, he's easily manipulable. And, I kind of know how to manipulate people. Not that I do, of course. But people like him, it's like manipulating Donald. It's like falling off a log. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, I've never done that. But I think that's an expression. I think Rubio is miserable. I think he knows that he sold what little was left of his soul. And he might be on board. All he needs to do is replace all of the Diet Cokes with the caffeine-free version. And Donald will sleep for a very long time. And I'll have a terrible migraine. Bonus. Just a thought. Minor Cheryl, thank you so much as always. Question asking for Mama 23. Okay, cool. Mary, I'm sorry I can't afford to send money. Please never apologize for that. Everybody's doing what they can. Just be here. Subscribe because that's just a click of a button. It doesn't cost anything. Please don't ever apologize for that. You guys are doing enough. Just getting by, just surviving this is enough, and you're here. That makes us so incredibly grateful. You have no idea, and I should say it more. I'm worried about my family. Question, do you think knowing him yourself, he may go after gays or just... Sorry. He may go after gays or disabled people like he is trans people or Hispanics. Well, I mean, since you asked the question, I'm fairly certain you believe you know the answer, and the answer is yes, because he's an incredibly hateful person who has no empathy, no human feeling. I mean, he doesn't even care about his children. All of his relationships are transactional. And the people he attacks most are those who are weak. I mean, weaker in terms of power differentials, not weak human beings. They're just in weaker positions. They don't have power. Certainly not as compared to him. I mean, look at the people he goes after publicly. Nobody has as much power as he does, at least not in this country. And he's a coward. And he traffics in cruelty. He gets off on being cruel to people who can't defend themselves. That's what he did to my dad. And there are complicated reasons why that was the case. So again, I hate saying it because it's a horrible, horrible thing to hear, especially if you're in one of those groups, but pretending otherwise is not going to serve us well. So, all the more reason for us to stay in this together, grow this community, and figure out ways to support each other and protect each other to the extent we can, especially those of us who are not in those communities who are most at risk. We need to learn in a way that white people, for example, in this country have never learned sufficiently to be allies, especially at times like this. So I'm sorry, and please stay safe. Wendy, thank you so very much for that. Comment, thanks for bringing us truth and me stay sane. Well, you're welcome. And if I could, any of us here could do anything to contribute somebody's ability to stay sane, that we are grateful that we're able to do that, because I know it's hard. I know it's hard because I've had the same struggles. Deb, thank you very much from Australia. Thank you so much for that. Question, who can charge M all for treason? Oh, M all. Lock them all up, please. Yeah. Nobody. The Democrats need to win back the House and the Senate in 2026. I think they might actually get the House back today, this year, because there's some special elections and the margin is so narrow. But the Senate is trickier. I feel like I've been hearing this for the last 3 or 4 election cycles. The map is really bad for Democrats. Is it ever bad for Republicans? I don't know. It seems not to be. So we need a significant change in the way, in the power balance. Right now, it's all with the Republicans, and getting back the House is not enough. It's good. It would be a good thing, but it's not enough, unfortunately. And also, is it treason if they say it's not? Right now, no, it is not. KJ Crafts, thank you as always, KJ. Comment, stay safe, Mary. Would love it. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Kimberly, thank you very much, Kimberly. Question, do you think we convinced Schumer to step down? I think Schumer is like in some diluted state. He seems to think, like he actually said this, that hanging out with a bunch of the Republican senators in the gym wearing their tiny shorts is enough to like make them feel sympathetic. I don't know what his problem is, but he does not understand. He is not the man for the moment. He doesn't know how to meet the moment. He needs to go away. But he has a lot of power. He's misusing every single ounce of it, but he has a lot of power. Who's going to make him? I don't know. The only hope we have is that enough Senate Democrats make enough noise, cause enough trouble, because seriously, what was it? Like, I don't know. More than 60, 70% of your caucus ignores leadership. That's a serious problem. It's a much more serious problem if you pretend that it's just fine. So yeah, get the fuck out of here, Chuck Schumer. I'm ashamed to say both of my senators betrayed the United States of America with those despicable, unconscionable, inexcusable votes of theirs to continue to allow this to go on in perpetuity. M. Garcia, comment, Hegseth said it was fake news while the White House had already confirmed it was true. LOL. Yeah, I mean, that's how, well, I think part of it is because Pete Hegseth is a deeply ignorant, unintelligent person, and he's very arrogant. But where did he get it from? He actually said, oh yeah, it's a lie, a fake news, Russia hoax. He said that. Where did they get this from? Donald. They just think that because they are protected by him, that they can get away with the same things. And that will be true for a while, as long as they serve his purposes. But it won't stay true forever. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Donald is a little fickle when it comes to loyalty. It has to be one-way street. It has to be 100% going towards him. And it still isn't enough. All of these people think they're immune. That will change somehow. Maybe Elon Musk will get sick of Pete Hegseth. Who knows? Brian, comment. What people don't realize is that this is the first time they have been caught. Yeah. Lord knows how often they have communicated in this way. Yes, Lord knows. And that's the thing that needs to be discussed more. It's not just they did it. And again, who knows how long, how often, what else they've talked about that they should not have been talking about. Why won't we know? Because in the app Signal, which is an encrypted messaging app, it's like texting, but it's allegedly more secure. You can set messages to disappear after a day, after a week, after a month. So they did that. in this chat. And we know that because Jeffrey Goldberg told us they did, which means that in addition to violating the Espionage Act, they also violated the Records Act. I don't know the full name of it, but you are not allowed to erase government documents ever, especially not without some protocol being followed. That's what these guys did, and they did it intentionally. You cannot accidentally set messages in Signal to disappear. I know because I'm on Signal. I wasn't in that chat, unfortunately, but hey, here's hoping. Next one, perhaps, I'll let you know. Because like Jeffrey Goldberg, I'm not going to wait 2 years and write a book about it when it doesn't matter anymore. Bob Woodward. Henry, thank you so much for that. That's very kind of you. Comment. Thanks for all you do to keep us safe and informed. You're very, very welcome. There's beauty everywhere, and we continue to see it beyond their darkness. Yeah, that's beautifully put. That is exactly what we need to do. Continue to see there's beauty everywhere, and we will continue to see it beyond their darkness. Absolutely. That's a t-shirt. All about me. Comment. 2 perfect months. I needed that laugh. Yeah, well. Yeah. I mean, it's a horrified kind of laughter, but laughter nonetheless. Tova, thank you so much, Tova. Comment, I look at it like this. Everything will work out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it isn't the end. Well, listen, you're right. They're always. This is something I absolutely believe in. Even though it's hard sometimes. I absolutely believe there's always room for hope. Because if there's no hope, then what are we even doing here? Right? What's the point if we don't have any hope? You have to have hope. You have to have hope that there's a possibility that there's something around the corner. There's meaning beyond this. There's possibility beyond this. There are people who will rise above this. Even the people who will put us here, perhaps. We have to maintain that hope. Always. Media Night Owl. Question. Donald has major ADHD, self-medicates with caffeine. I don't know. I cannot possibly diagnose him. I mean, I have theories, but he was never my patient. Obviously, he's my uncle, tragically. But as I've said many times, diagnosis is a very lengthy process for which you need to be very highly trained. You can't just look at I know there's a lot of video, and honestly, we know more about him than we would if he did come in for psychological testing, because he would lie the whole time. He's not going to he doesn't have any insight into himself. It would be very, very difficult to test him, although I would love to see his Rorschach test. Just saying. But it's never going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, there are some things we can speak about colloquially, but one other thing I've said is it doesn't matter what his official diagnosis is, because we see what he's doing. Leaving the technical diagnostic terms aside, he is a madman, and he's a nihilist, and he is hell-bent on bringing everything down. Why? Because nobody has ever loved him, and nobody ever can, because he was rendered unlovable by the guy who made it possible for him to fail upward so spectacularly. That's why he's so miserable. And if we cared about it, it would be horrific. It would be a tragedy. But because he is who he is, I'm totally cool with how miserable he is. I love my dogs a lot. Thank you as always for that. Comment, I really believe elections will go the way of the dodo bird. Well, yeah, that's another thing to worry about. But, we have to try to keep up. If we make that concession now, then let's not do that yet. I think it's a reasonable concern. Absolutely. But if that's what they're gunning for, which they are, just like they're gunning for him to get a third term, well, let's try not to make that happen somehow. Being aware of that is very important. F-150 Chick, Canadian in the house. You guys rock. Thank you for everything you're doing. Which is a weird thing to say under the circumstances, but we're behind you 100%. Comment, congratulations in advance, Mary and team. Yeah, we're right on the brink of 350,000 subscribers. So thanks for bringing that up. Yes, we're very, very happy about that. Every week is getting better here, and it's because of you guys. So thank you. Keep on keeping on. We will. And go Canada. Spoodlebug, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Comment, a lot of what you have to say is making me feel sane. Okay, good. I'm a Black trans woman and struggle to feel safe while few people care to understand why. Yes, I am so sorry for that. And it's true and it's horrific. And I hope you are surrounded by a community in which you feel safe and protected, because as I said earlier, like that is our job right now, to be allies to people who are really vulnerable. And being a Black trans woman is potentially the most vulnerable position you can be in this country, in this atmosphere in which we're living. So I'm glad this is a place you feel you can come to feel sane. And this issue is extraordinarily important to me, and I hope to make it important to more people, because it is unspeakable and unconscionable the ways in which Donald and this regime are going after trans people, especially trans people of color. Kenderson, Canada, thank you so very much. Question, is Stephen Miller an alien? No, he's a Nazi. He just, maybe he's a Nazi from outer space. Possible. Okay, Tsuki56, come on, man. Awesome. Thank you. Comment, Mary, my wife found a cap that has mega. Make Elon go away. That's a good one. Cool. Everybody get one of those, but make sure it's spelled out in like neon yellow on a black background. Okay, want to thank some people. Carmen, thank you so very much for that. Regina, super sticker. Awesome. Christina, super sticker. Thanks so much, Christina. That's great. Being Nancy, another super sticker. Thank you so very much for that. Diane Richards, thank you very much for that. We very appreciate that. Next signal chat. You clowns are what? I don't read emoji. I have a very limited use of emoji. I use like 4. All right. So Mercedes is trying to translate for me, but I don't speak sign language either. So this is a disaster. Next single chat. You clowns are fried? Fucked. What? Fired. Oh, shit. Well, I mean, all right. Can somebody put on the flamingos? Just kidding. That would be really bad. Is that another t-shirt? No, because I still don't know what it means. All right. Getting serious again. Mariana, thank you as always. So appreciate it. Cheryl from Canada, thank you for being Canadian, and thank you for that, for being a super sticker. Lynette, thank you. Another super sticker. That's fantastic. Lorianne, thank you very much for that. Dylan, another super sticker. Awesome. Nancy, as always, thank you for being a super sticker. I'm not laughing about that. I'm still laughing because I'm an idiot. Kelly, another super sticker. Thank you very much for that. Vanessa, you as well. That's great. Nadia, another super sticker. Thank you. Tia Mia, another super sticker. Oh, look at all of our super stickers. Representing. Love it. Vicky, another super sticker. Thank you very much, Vicky. Linda, you as well. Another super sticker. And finally, Pam, thank you very much for that. You guys are so generous. We so appreciate it. Just quickly want to thank everybody watching on YouTube. Everybody barely finding us on Twitter. Everybody live streaming on my Substack. So appreciate that. I love the crossover. And of course, everybody listening to our podcast, which we really appreciate as well. All of your comments are fantastic. Our super stickers. You guys rock. Everybody giving gifts. We promise you that it's all in service to the mission of growing this and just getting better, so we can be better for you. And of course, to our moderators who keep this place running as it should be, so everybody feels safe and attended to and listened to and respected. We appreciate that incredibly. And of course, to my extraordinary team, I need another word. But it's, I know I say this a lot, but it's so difficult to convey what these guys deal with on a daily basis. It's overwhelming sometimes, and they just do it just beautifully and with a tremendous amount of grace and professionalism. And that means so much to me, as it should to all of you. So thanks, team. All right, I will be back. I don't know what day it is. Oh yeah, it's Tuesday because the nerds were today. There's also another video that dropped earlier, I think, about the kind of fallout of this national security nightmare we're living through right now. So please check that out. I will be back tomorrow night live, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Reminder, Mary Trump Live is every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Lots of videos dropping tomorrow and every day. So please check those out. Subscribe to the channel. It does not cost anything. You do not need to give us money. I mean, we so appreciate when you do. But if it's a struggle, don't do it. It is not compulsory. And we don't want you to sacrifice anything to give us some money. It's please. Everybody needs to be taking care of themselves as well right now. So subscribe, click on the bell icon so you'll be alerted every time new video drops. Share and like the videos. That helps us tremendously as well. All right, that does it for us. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow night. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.